Welcome, useful content community. If you're running ads on social media and you're not getting the best results, stay tuned because today we are honored to have with us content creator, growth marketer, and digital marketing strategist Robert DeGans to show us how to get better returns on running our social media ads.
Broadcasting live from Relate Studios in Trinidad and Tobago, it's the Useful Content Creation Show with your host, Juma Bannister.
This is the Useful Content Creation Show where business owners come to learn how to create useful content and build better long-term relationships with their employees and their clients. My name is Juma Bannister and I'm happy to be with you. I am your host. And for those who are in the comments, remember that we are the Useful Content Community. And, I always forget to put the banners up. But today I'm going to say we own the bulb emoji. Don't forget to throw your bulbs up. And if you're here live, drop your hashtag UCC live. And if you're here for the replay, don't forget to drop your hashtag UCC replay. And for those who are in my Facebook group, of course, we are here to learn lots and lots of things. So we're going to drop our hashtag Learn with UCC. And today we have with us, and I'm happy to introduce our special guest who's going to teach us useful things on how to get the best return on our Google and Facebook ads. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Thank you very much, Juma. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to the comments and the questions and how we get to get some useful content out there.
Yeah, great to have you. I mean, I think that we haven't had anyone before to talk about ads, so this is going to be exciting for people because ads is kind of like a mystery for some people. And I know you've been doing this for a while, so you should have really, really great things to say about that. I'm just realizing now that both you and I were at the Brand Print Summit.
Yes, that's true. I see that. Just to derail for a second, but I think Jamila's saying that she can't see you. I don't know if there's a technical issue on their side, but we don't want to miss anything.
Okay, let's see. If she's on LinkedIn and she can't see me, that means LinkedIn is giving trouble. So what we should do is that if you are on LinkedIn and you cannot see me, that means LinkedIn is doing what it should not do, which is give trouble. And if you want to see the show, you can go to youtube.com/It's Good to Relate. It's running there. And if you are in my Facebook group, you should be safe. Jamila, go check. Jamila's in the Facebook group. Go check in the Facebook group. Make sure it's running okay there. LinkedIn somehow, this from time to time doesn't like live streaming and it blanks out the screen. So I'm sorry for my LinkedIn crew. But for those who are on YouTube and on Facebook, please let me know if you're okay there. She said okay. She can see me now. Thank you so much, Jamila, for that update.
Amazing. All right. Yes. Where were we? Sorry.
Yeah, I was saying both of us were at the Brand Print Summit.
Yeah.
And at that time you spoke about what? What did you speak about there?
Man, it feels like it's been so long ago. I think, oh geez, Jamila, you might be able to have to help me out here because there's so much content that I've shared over the last couple of years. Juma, you've stumped me. I can't remember what I spoke about on that on the Brand Print Summit.
All right. Well, I'm sure it has something to do with digital strategy.
Absolutely, yes. Oh gosh,
it's okay. I know you used to be working in advertising at some point. You've always been in advertising.
Yeah. So I've been in the digital industry for the last 11 years. Yes, thank you, Jamila. Help me out here. It's how to choose the best social media platform for your persona and business. And that's what I spoke about at Brand Print. And so just to kind of give a history, what I've done over my career is I started the DDB branch of their digital agency called Tribal DDB when I first came back from New York in 2011, and I sort of built that up. That was it really feels like it ages me when I say this, but that was before Instagram existed. Twitter was just a thing. I feel so old to say that, but I really started with the beginning of the digital industry in Trinidad and Tobago, and over the last 10 years, a lot has changed, and because of that, I've done a little bit of everything. So, 2013, I won Best in Show and Best in Digital for the Addies for two websites that I had sort of conceptualized: My Energy TT, which is unfortunately defunct now, and My Moo Milk, which has been updated to a point where you won't be able to see the old one. But so I've done website design, I've done branding, I've done social media, I've done paid ads, I've done the whole spread of it. And what some of the key things that people always ask us is, okay, one of the things is, where should we be? Which is what I spoke about in the Brand Print Summit with Jamila, how to choose the best social media platform for your persona and business. But over the last sort of 5 years, I've refocused my career into how to get the most out of the money you're spending. So the beginning of the digital industry, there was this big push for, and there's a really common ad saying that half of the money I spend on advertising is wasted. I just don't know which half, right? And that was when you had to buy TV and radio, and you sort of you knew it worked, but you had no concept of how well it worked. And digital promised to change all of that. And they were like, you can track everything, clicks and this and that and the other. And you're like, amazing, sounds great. But then it got to a point where we have so much data that we have no idea what's working again, because I don't know which of these 200 metrics that Facebook gives me are relevant to my business. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today in terms of how to really, you're going to be here, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're on Google, what matters. And that's where I've focused the last 5 years of my career on growth marketing and digital strategy that helps take clients from I'm selling 10 things a month to I'm selling 100 things a month. And that's that kind of growth.
That's great. That's great. I think everyone wants growth, and if you're able to track what happens when you actually put your money out there, it's not only useful, but it's the kind of the difference between whether you'll have a successful business
Absolutely.
and run into a brick wall eventually. And you also a content creator. You ran a Instagram live show for a while.
Yeah. So thanks for reminding me. I forget all of these things. But Digital for Everyone it was a brainchild really out of the pandemic. The pandemic kicked off and there was just everybody went on live. And I said, okay, what can I do to bring value to, because I saw all of these small businesses sort of floundering because they're like, the country is shut down. I can't make any money. How do I maximize what I do have access to? Social media, going live, things like that. And through my career, I realized that, people don't like to be sold to, right? I'm not here. And so that was one of the goals of Digital for Everyone. I was never going to sell myself. But they do like to be educated about something. And then they will naturally make the decision if it's right for them or not. Because what has happened, and a lot of people who've been in this industry for long enough will tell you that a lot of people have come in and burnt the bigger brands where they're like, yeah, we'll do this, and they promise them the world and they don't deliver anything. So my goal was to say, people are really gun shy about digital, and the pandemic has catapulted us forward in terms of acceptance of credit cards, and just e-commerce has just blown up in Trinidad, which I'm very happy for. But a lot of people were very gun shy, and my goal with DFE was to bring digital to everyone and say, this is how this piece works. This is how that piece works. And I spent, it was about 6 months, I think, just each week going into things about what does this mean? What does that mean? Because digital is so broad. It's so broad that it's impossible to have, 1 hour show where you know everything. So I just interviewed different specialists across different fields and brought it all there. It's all It's all for free. You can go check it out. Digital for Everyone on YouTube. And if you want a certain topic covered, hit me up, and I'll happy to do another episode for it.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Mhm.
How did the not being able to train during the pandemic treat your MMA or your judo and stuff? Did you?
Yes. Not well. I was in a let's call it I was in a growth period. Not being able to exercise is one of those things that is always bad, and especially for me, I need to keep moving because I have attention deficit, and that physical activity really makes a difference for me. So that was rough, but thankfully the hardcore MMA days are behind me, and I practice judo and jiu-jitsu now, and that's good enough for me.
Okay, great, wonderful. Dangerous guy in digital and in real life. All right, great. So let's jump into the meat of the matter today, talking about some ads and how we can get the best out of them. But before we do that, let me ask you the question I ask everyone who comes on the show. The big question is, what makes your content useful?
That is a tough question, and even though you posed it to me earlier, I still don't have a really concrete, insightful answer. I would say that my content is useful for two reasons. One, it is straight to the point and very much done in layman's terms. There's not a bunch of industry buzzwords and stuff like that. I try to make content that anyone can understand. I call it tanty proofing. So you could explain this to your auntie and your nene, and they will understand it. And I think that would be the core thing that makes my content useful. It is explained in a way that anyone can get it.
Yeah, for those who don't know what a tanty and a nenen is, we're talking about your aunt.
Yes,
and
that's
I
true.
think is nenen your godmother or your other? I don't know what.
I'm not actually sure. I've heard it, but I don't know the backgrounds for the name.
Some female relative. That's what your nenen is. I would
Sure.
suspect. For those who are not from Trinidad and Tobago, and I have no idea what we're talking about. All right, great. So you make it very relatable, and I think that is one of the hallmarks of useful content, that it has to be able to speak to the people who are supposed to benefit from it, and speaking in their language is very, very important. So I like that answer. All right, okay, so let's hi Robert. Let me just say hello to Robert real quick. Hi Robert. He jumps on and says hello. Robert is one of my good connections on LinkedIn out to the US. I think he's in the South. Is it
Hey Robert.
Tennessee? And I can't remember, one of the southern states.
That's a great name. I like it.
Rob, you don't say. All right, so let's talk about this some more. Let's go a little deeper. So I have a company. I'm doing really well. Why would I need to run digital ads of any sort? Why should I care about that at all?
Oh boy. The simple answer is, if you want to be found today, you have to be where people are, and overwhelmingly people are online. There's no question about it. You definitely have to be online, because it's not just being available. It would kind of like 10 years or 50 years ago, it would kind of like not having a shop, a physical storefront. You're not going to be found. It needs to be word of mouth, and then that's very difficult. So you definitely want to, at bare minimum, you have to be online, because that's how people find you these days. Yeah, that's the shortest way I could give that answer, for sure.
Right. And so you're saying that ads, well, I mean, I guess somebody could argue that all they need to do is just be on social media and they could have the same impact, but what kind of leverage does running ads really give you?
Absolutely. So I can't remember the statistic because it changes all the time, but I think it's like some obscene amount of content is created every day, right? And if you realize that there's a fire hose on of content of people putting out stuff, very, very small percentage of that content ever goes viral in a way that takes it to the masses and everybody knows about it. Most of the content gets lost in the noise. And to avoid that, you pay for promotion, because you will spend a lot of time creating content, setting it up. You've done a lot of work with this program itself, and it gets out there, and it gets out there organically, and it will grow. Creating content consistently, that the 3 C's: create content consistently, will give you growth, but to see it in a much faster timeline, that's what paid ads are for. That is what the effort in paid media brings you. You get more people to see your stuff. And the key thing about that is that kind of what we mentioned earlier, you're spending money, but these platforms aren't always as easy to optimize as they seem. So you might spend $1,000 and I get lots of people to see my ads, but how
Mhm.
many of them were really relevant? How many of them clicked on the
Right.
ad? How many of them did that action that you wanted them to take, which might be a phone call, which might be an email, which might be a purchase? And that's where the ads come in. They just supercharge the awareness, which will help supercharge your growth if done right.
Right.
Mhm,
Okay, if done right. So that's
mhm.
that's like the big caveat there right there, if done right. So if we want to do ads right, where exactly should we start with it? What is the starting point? Take us through how
Sure,
you talk to people about ads when they want to start ads.
absolutely. So one of the and actually, shameless plug. I speak about this in my Brand Print Summit talk about how to choose the best social media platform for your persona and business. But where I really start for me at the beginning starts at the end, which sounds counterintuitive, but every person I speak to, I ask them, what does success look like to you? And the answer that they give me to that question defines everything else that I guide them to do.
Hmm.
So for most people, it's, I want to make more money. Okay. Which means that I need to sell more of my product or service. And what we then walk through is, all right, how do I build the funnel, right? Because the marketing funnel is a pretty common term used. You have your awareness, decision making, and conversion, making the sale. How do we build the funnel backwards to understand, all right, we need more revenue, which means that we need more people to take a certain action. So for some people, if you have an e-commerce platform, that means I need sales, I need people to click add to cart and then purchase. For smaller businesses and businesses that aren't on e-commerce, maybe you're a plumber and you want more phone calls to come in, right? So let's use the plumber example through this just to make it really relatable. This plumber wants more phone calls to come in. Great. So we take a step back and say, okay, the action that we want to increase is phone calls. So we take a step back from that and we say, okay, what platforms is this person on? So he's on Facebook, he's on Instagram, he's on LinkedIn. Because
Mhm.
shout out to Jared Best Mitchell. Jared always tells this story about how he met um, his welder on LinkedIn, because the welder is actually
Right.
on LinkedIn showing, here's welding and fabrication services. This is what I did this week. And it's odd, but it works. That's where Jared found him. That's where Jared referred me to him, and he's given me a quote for a gate that I want to build. So this is
Mhm.
how business will grow. But to really kick it off, the first thing that we ask is, what does success look like to you? And I think everybody knows that from the I want to make more money, but you need to kind of step back and say, okay, what action do I need someone to take for me to make more money? And then once we get there, we can take the step back. Is like, what action do they need to take online that gets them to do that thing? So Facebook and
Mm.
Instagram have call buttons on your profile. LinkedIn, you can put up your number. Google, you can have your Google My Business account. Um, and all of these things kind of work together. So I don't want to go too deep into that just yet, but I mean, we'll walk through the process as we go along. But that is where you start. What does success look like to you?
Right. So you start in the end. So you start with the end in mind,
Hmm.
and we could argue that all good marketing uses that kind of structure. We want to know what our
Okay.
goals are before you do that,
Hmm.
and you have to get very specific as to the platforms that will work for you.
Hmm.
And then you kind of okay. So then after you determine what the end is, you kind of choose. Well, I might want to use, let's for example, Facebook or
Hmm.
Google, which we're talking about these days. Then
Yeah.
what do you do?
Okay. So I think you raised a good point that I realize I didn't give as much information as I should have on. Choosing the platform is important, and it would be impossible for me to sit here and tell everyone who's listening, for this industry you do this, for this industry you do that. I think what the best thing to do in terms of trying to find out that is, look at your current customers, who's actually buying from you now, and create a rough demographic goal. So if you realize that 25 to 45, it's women, and maybe they are busier moms, right? Or, maybe they are, I guess, dads who are stay at home or anything like that. Just figure out kind of who's buying from you right now, because often people will say, well, my product is for everybody, right? And it's not. You have to understand who is buying from you now. Use that as your core audience, because those are the people who are more likely to convert. Yes, your product might be for everybody, like KFC is for everybody with a stomach, but KFC obviously doesn't want to market to vegetarians, because that's wasted ad spend. So you have to think about, all right, who's buying from me now? Great. Use that, create a profile. And then there's so much data online where you can say, where are 25 to 45 females online? And there'll be research easily available that'll tell you these 3 or 4 platforms is where you'll find a lot of them. Great. Start with that. That'll dictate your platforms. And then for me, and the biggest thing I think out of all of this is that data will tell you everything you need to know. But out of this, I will teach you how to actually assess that data and understand, okay, I actually don't need that platform. Or yes, I actually need to be on this additional platform that I hadn't thought about. So we get the success, we define the platforms, and in between that, we understand what is the success action taken. So I need a phone call. We're going to go back to the plumber. I need a phone call. You look at what is it relatable to on the different platforms. So your Facebook page can have a call me button. I believe, I think your Instagram page can have it as well. LinkedIn, I'm not as familiar, but I don't think they have a call me button on LinkedIn, but you can put your phone number up there. And then Google My Business, you can claim your business on Google. I highly recommend that. It is free. It is fantastic. It gets you visibility. And in terms of being found, it's a fantastic way to be found. So definitely, if you haven't done that, always advocate for it. Go log on to Google My Business and just claim your business. It's a great way to get found online. So
could you explain more about how to claim your business as like a side? It's a side quest we're going on here. Could you explain more about that?
Sure. Essentially, I mean, how to describe? I'm actually pulling it up right now to remind myself, because it's been a while since I've done it. But literally, if you go on Google and you type in Google My Business, you get, Google allows you to list a profile of your business where you can create an account and say, okay, my business does this. This is where it's located. These are our opening hours. Here's my phone number. Here's directions to the place. If you do need to give directions to a place, if you have like a brick and mortar business, services, reviews, photos, it's free, and it's on the largest search engine in the world. And most of Google's searches fall into a few key categories. So they're transactional, which is, for example, using the plumber example now, I'm looking for an affordable plumber. They are location based, and that is, I'm looking for a plumber near me, which is where, again, your Google My Business is going to come up real handy there. And then finally, it is informational. It might be something like, how much should a plumber charge, or average cost to replace a toilet, let's say. And those things, Google is the largest search engine in the world. Having a free profile there where you can be found for the key things that you do is a no-brainer, and it's a fantastic place to start. It's literally google.com/business, and the instructions to set it up are really, really straightforward. And then what you can do, and one of the best things to do, is if you have a customer who works with you, let them go on your Google My Business profile and write a review, because one of the strongest drivers of conversion on social platforms is a referral. It's the same way that I like to tell people, nothing has changed about what humans do, right? We still ask for advice on, I want to buy a car, I want to buy a house. Who did you go by? And they will refer you to, the lady at the bank is who we've been banking with for 15, 20 years, and you kind of crowdsource. Social media has just opened that audience up to all of your friends. And you've seen it. You've seen it on Facebook where people say, I need a good plumber, I need a good this, I need a good that. Anybody have any recommendations? And that, I know it's going a bit off Google My Business, but that is what Google My Business allows that review section to do for everyone. So you can
Right.
see that, people that you don't know, that you don't have any reason to believe or disbelieve, have given this review of their own accord. And they can see the product, and they can see the service, and they can comment about it. So absolutely a fantastic resource, and it's free. And anything you can get for free that increases your ability to get sales, absolutely, let's use it.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if they still send out those mail. I mean, when we did it years ago, they literally mailed out a thing. Do they still do that?
They do, especially if you're claiming a physical space, and it's just a little postcard that you get 6 numbers and letters, and you have to go back into the account and approve it. It's basically to stop people from claiming the Red House and saying, the Red House is my business place and things like that. So once you can receive mail there, Google assumes that, all right, you really do live there, or you really work there, and therefore the other information that they've put there is legit.
Right. Okay. So side quest completed, achievement unlocked. Let's go back to the ads now. So let's talk a bit more about actually like putting together your ads and running them. So we know that there are many different versions of ads you can have. I mean, you could have ads with images, you can have ads with video, you can have text ads. Tell us, like, how can somebody decide on what they need to run, and how does somebody then now actually put that into the digital space as an ad?
Yeah. So Juma, I think this is always the most disappointing answer I have to give everybody. And the answer is that it is so dependent on so many different factors. And ultimately the answer is test everything, because you have the content that I create and that you create. Even if you told 100 people create an ad for a garage sale, you would get 100 different types of ads, and no one is going to know that my ad is better than your ad until we test it. And one of the biggest things, and I think, guys, if there's anything you take from this call, from this show, if there's anything you take from this, A/B test your content. And what I mean by A/B test is not create 2 completely different ads. Create 2 ads that are almost exactly the same and change one thing, just one thing on them. This is taking you back to CXC days. You have to you can only change one variable in the experiment to test whether that makes a difference. And I'll give a quick story about I worked with one of the big 5 local insurance companies for a number of years. And we took the number of leads that they were generating from about 24 a month to 1,000 a month, and we maintained that for 2.5 years. Now, obviously, a lot of that work came into, we had to improve different things like the websites and the content and things like that. But ultimately, what it came down to was A/B testing the simplest things. We tested emotive language versus a very fact-based ad. So one ad was like, secure your family for, make sure your family is safe and protect your investments and things like that. It's very emotive language. And then we had another one that just said insurance for X $100 a month. And it sounds a bit cliche, but the woman clicked more on the emotive language ad, and the men clicked more on the direct, sort of very financial based ad. That's a piece of information we didn't have before. Now, everyone knows that women are safer drivers, and if the insurance company wanted to say, okay, we need more men or we need more women, they now have that piece of information that it didn't have before. So you have that. And there's even simpler things. The background makes a difference. Changing the background can change a 2 to 3% conversion rate increase. And that, it sounds like nothing, but if your conversion rate was 2%, and I've added 2% onto that, that is 100% increase. So if you think about it, if you were selling 10, if the plumber was getting 10 phone calls last month, and he's done one thing, and his is 100% increase. He's now getting 20 phone calls this month. It could possibly 100% increase in his revenue. So that's the key thing about the content, A/B testing it. Now, I know that one of the hardest things for a lot of people to do is create that content. Now, I believe in this. I've heard this on some TV show, but the American Indians used to use every part of the buffalo, right? The skin, the hide, treat your content like that. If you create one long video, pull snippets out. Use the whole thing in different ways repeatedly, so that good content is hard to make. It requires effort. It's not just here's a picture of me, here's a picture of the product, inbox for price. That's bad content.
Oh my!
That creates content about how bad it is. But the idea is that, all right, if you create a video, okay, great, it's a video piece of content. You can create a still image out of that and use the same piece of content. You created a still image. So you have a still image and a video. And now Facebook, for example, allows you to use carousel. What if you broke that video into 10 different images? Test all of those together. It's the same content with the same message. It's just in different formats. And when the data comes back to you and says, okay, Mr. Plumber, the carousel got 17 calls, the still image got 2 calls, and the video got 4 calls. Then you can make the decision to say, okay, well, carousel and video are what seem to be performing the best. Let's create another video with a slightly different message and do those two and see if that makes a difference. Because the differences are so small, but can be so impactful.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so it's interesting. So we're talking about A/B testing, making slight changes with with similar pieces of content or same pieces of content, making tiny changes to see how people respond to it. It sounds easy, and I want to believe that it's easy. But how long does a process like this take? How long do you take to determine if something works or not? What's that like?
So that is a fantastic question. And I hate to say this again, it depends, but generally, what you want, and this is dependent on actually the investment that you spend on on advertising the content itself. Generally, if you're spending a healthy amount, let's say $1,000 a month, right, which is it's not an insignificant amount for a lot of small businesses, right? $1,000, you need to I need this to work. But if you're spending $1,000 a month, anywhere between 10 to 15 days of running that test, will you have enough information to make a clear decision? So I would say at minimum 10 days. But that requires, a bit more investment, because the way it works is that the more money you put in is the more interactions you're essentially paying Facebook for. So if you need 1,000 interactions to get a clear idea of whether this works or not, it's like doing a survey. If I did a survey of 10 people, it's not really a qualitative survey. But if I did a survey of 1,000 people, it would be much more, the data would be much more convincing. So if you're spending a little bit, you will get the data over a longer period of time. But if you're spending a lot, you'll get the data over a shorter period of time. And that's unfortunately, it's sort of a pay-to-play scenario. But at minimum 10 days, at maximum 30 days, because by 30 days, everybody would have had a chance to see it and do their actions based on it. And you can look at that and say with a fair degree of certainty, okay, this type of content seems to work better. But, next month you might do that same carousel, but the message might not be as good. So the video might do better. So again, there's tons of back and forth, but each time you learn, your content gets a little bit better and a little bit better. And it's that iterative process that goes, the best way to get 10% increase in revenue or performance is to get 1% better in 10 different areas. So if your ads are 1% better, and then your website is 1% better, and then the checkout flow is 1% better, or the website is 1% faster. Just a quick segue, and one of my favorite points of data. Amazon 10 years ago. Now I'm sure this is different now, but 10 years ago, Amazon realized a 1% increase in revenue for every 1 second they reduced their page load speed. So Amazon is an enormous company, and they were still an enormous company 10 years ago. But if you think about what that meant for Amazon in hundreds of millions of sales, if they could get 1% better just because their website was 1 second faster, that will give you an insight into, wow, if the background on my ad was different, if it was a dark background versus a light background, if that made a 1% difference in click-through rate, what would that mean for my business? And people think 1% doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what stands out to me, everything that you're saying, what sounds like is very important for people to understand is that you're going to need to make some type of investment if you want to see and learn how your business actually work and what works best. Because I guess you could take a year, 2 years to learn what works. But that it may be the difference between your business being able to stay alive and your business kind of petering off and dying, because many businesses are dead even though they're still open.
Yeah. They're just on life support, and people are putting the efforts. Sorry to cut you. People are putting the efforts and on all of the effort into, creating content, and they're churning out content into. It's the content hole, because that beast is never there's never a point where, okay, I've created 1,000 pieces of content, I don't need to create any more pieces of content. No, you will always need to create content. The goal is to make sure that every piece of content that you create, you learn one thing that makes the next piece of content you create a little bit more effective.
Right.
You look at Gary Vee, who I follow on LinkedIn. Every morning, this guy puts out something. He has a morning walk where he just talks about things. But he's clearly realized that these morning walks work, and that, he's been creating content for, I don't know, 10 years, more or more.
Yeah.
So the A/B testing will guide, a lot of things. But I know that we kind of talking about improving on the kind of stepping back from the A/B testing and looking back at the funnel. So content is at the beginning of the funnel. I want to make sure that you guys, put out 2 versions of the ad. It can be really, really simple stuff. And I will just list off a few things that you can change. Take the exact ad that you have running now, the exact same one, change the background, right? You can change the background on it, light versus dark. If you have brand colors and you want to switch them out, alternate them. Like, if you have brand colors are red and white, do a red background with white text, and then do a white background with red text. Just see how those work. Changing the visual, whether there's a person in it, whether there's not a person in it. Changing the call to action button. Now, some platforms like social media don't allow you to have a button, but changing the call to action text. So it might be, one might say call now, one might say click here. These kinds of things, again, they seem simple, but they make a huge difference. And the best part about it is that you've already created the core of the content. These changes that I'm asking you for are not expensive in the sense that if you have to pay a graphic artist, that they're going to charge you a whole lot more to do. This is, give me this image with a black background, give me this image with a white background. Run them at the same time. And that small changes, big difference over time. So we start with the content. We get, we've decided on the platforms from before. So you have the content on the platforms. And then you look at what matters to you. So going back to the plumber example, you have the plumber who wants to generate calls. So Facebook will let you know how many calls you were able to generate. Instagram as well. LinkedIn might be a little bit different, but with the ad platform, I'm sure you can get a KPI that will tell you, we're pretty sure this is how it's happening. And then at the end of the day, you get to see if every time you pick up the phone and it's a new customer, you ask them, hey, where are you calling? Where did you see my ad? Where did you call me from? And you make notes of that. Some of that is a little bit manual because we're not in the US where you can have a Google number and things like that. But if you are in the US and you have a Google phone number, you can really, really directly find out, okay, this call came from Facebook, this call came from Google, and such. So you get to that point where you make that connection between the offline conversion and the online action that precipitated that, and that way you'll begin to see very quickly where your money is going and what it's doing for you.
Right.
But go for it.
Oh, okay. No, I was just gonna agree with you, and I was gonna add, like, I know you mentioned funnels. And basically, your funnel is the kind of process that takes somebody from discovering who you are to then becoming a loyal customer. It's kind of that process of
Yes.
carrying them through. That's from like saying, "Oh, Robert has this business," to, "Oh, I love what Robert did for me. Let me go talk about it online because let me give it a 5-star rating." And well, we kind of know that and I both know from experience that it's not really a funnel. It's like lots of different things could happen in between there. It's lots of different stuff. So if you're running an ad and you're not seeing like immediate results, so should you get scared and pull it immediately? Like at what point is like this thing is not working? Let me go. What, like, I know you said you need a certain amount of time, but what was like your response to that?
I would say 10 days is my minimum before I get worried about something. If, however, for example, you've set something up yesterday and you check it a couple days later and you realize no spend is happening, then your content is probably has probably run afoul of the platform's policies. So Facebook and Google, they have pretty straightforward policies, but when you are in certain industries, like if you're in healthcare or gambling or alcohol, even banking and finance, they have certain policies that you need to follow. And I would absolutely recommend, well, not absolutely, it's necessary for you to know what those policies are, because if you run afoul of them and they ban you or they block your ad, repeated infringements, especially with fake news and things like that, repeated infringement can actually ban you from advertising altogether, and that is a whole other podcast and a whole other problem to deal with. So just know the rules and play by them, they're usually very reasonable rules. But just to go back to your initial question, 10 days is the minimum I would give something before I get worried about, okay, it's really not performing. To step in and say, okay, time to turn this ad off. It's clearly not working.
Right. And you get some time to assess that. One last question before we move on to the other section of the show. I know many people, especially people who are in business for the first time or who are entrepreneurs, have this habit of trying to cram a ton of information into an ad. Like they will say, we specialize in, and then they will go into this 20 things, which is is not specialization, if anybody knows.
Yeah.
So what is your view on how people should, the general approach, not the actual content, but their general approach to ads? What have you seen to be the most effective way to approach that in general these days?
I am glad you've asked that, because it is so counterintuitive. The best ads I've ever run, ever, I've been doing this for 10 years. Get car insurance for X. Straight to the point, no sets of fluff, no, we are the best and get X for Y. That's it. And I've heard it said before, don't sell the product, sell the solution, or sell the solution to the problem, right? Apple doesn't sell a phone. They sell a lifestyle. It's a brand. It's an image and things like that. They don't care that their product, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flame for this, they don't care that their device is overpriced for the technology that goes into it. People are paying for the experience, the interface and things like that. And I'm a Google fanboy, so flame me in the comments if you want, but I understand why people buy Apple. We don't buy Baygon because we don't buy bug spray because we love the bug spray brand. We're buying the solution. So sell the solution, not your product. And once people understand that, hey, okay, they read an ad that says, get rid of this pain point, which I have for this amount of money, or or call now or whatever. It's a very clear decision process. It's not, I need to fall in love with this brand and it needs to mean a lot to me. Now, granted, that's a whole other thing. Yes, your brand does need to stand for things, but at the end of the day, in terms of what's the most effective messaging, get X for Y. Thank you very much, Robert. I knew you were a good man when I saw your name and I saw the Android all the way, and great minds.
I'm just gonna put this in here. Robert and I have been having this back and forth conversation. I would say for almost a year plus now about Android, and yeah, he always. All right, you have somebody supporting you of the same name, Robert Berry. Okay, there we go.
Juma, are you an Apple fanboy?
I am fanboy of nothing. I like function. So if it works, give it to me. It just so happens that we ended up in the ecosystem with Apple, and that has been the most efficient place to stay, and so we stayed there. My very first smartphone was a Google. The very first Google phone they ever released. The very first one they ever released.
The Nexus.
And man, that phone. I mean, I didn't see. My business partner was so angry at me that I told him, convinced him to buy that phone. It was no end of trouble, and all our phones conked out in less than a year. So we went to Apple after that, and we didn't never look back.
Okay, I will say that Apple works. It just works. It just works. And I don't get me wrong for that. I'm not one of these purists. I do like instigating the fight, but I'm not. Right. I like Google's platform for sure.
Why gotta be like that, Robert? Why gotta be like that? Tell me why. Why?
Oh,
saying, boo. All right. Okay, that's good. Okay, so let's go. There's so much more we could say, but we're running out of time. So I hope what we spoke about so far has been extremely useful to you. Let's jump into the segment that we like to call Agree Disagree, where I say some things and Robert can tell me if he agrees or disagrees. Let's jump into that segment right now. All right, this is Agree Disagree with Robert DeGans. I'm gonna make some statements. Robert, these statements are general statements. They're not an indication of whether I agree or disagree with it. Some of them are specific to you. Let's jump right into it. The first one is one that I ask everyone who comes on the show. Agree, disagree. Passion before skill.
Absolutely. You can't teach skill. You can't teach passion, but you can absolutely learn any skill you need.
All right, excellent. Agree, disagree. The number of ads you run is not as important as who you target.
Ooh, yes. With the caveat that, as I said before, please A/B test your ads. Just run 2. You can run just 2, and you will always learn something.
All right. Okay, good. Agree, disagree. Going live is a heavily underrated part of digital strategy.
Agree. My career did change for the better when I ran Digital for Everyone, because even myself, who's had a lot of experience across a wide range of digital things, I still learned something from the people, even on platforms and stuff that I thought I knew backwards and forwards. These people still taught me things about the platforms that I didn't know. So yeah, going live is excellent, and it's also much preferred by the platforms algorithmically. They like live content because it gets people engaged and gets people to spend more time on site. And more time on site for them means more ad dollars.
Right. True that. And I hadn't thought of that, but it's true. Agree, disagree. Sci-fi over action any day.
Juma coming with the tough questions. I'm struggling to think of a sci-fi show that is not action-packed. So it's difficult for me to say that I like a good action show. So Expanse was one of the best sci-fi shows I've ever seen, and that was full of action. So I'm in the middle there. I can't disagree with it.
You said you would do this, so
I can't. Okay, I can't disagree with it. So I would say that I do enjoy a new premise. So I would say sci-fi. I would take the sci-fi over your generic action flick. Yes.
All right, I'm man after my own heart. I love sci-fi too. I'm also a Dune fan, so yeah.
Oh, don't get me started on Dune. I was so upset that they delayed that show for a year.
Yeah, but it paid off. I mean, it was really great. It was.
I can't wait for part 2.
Yeah, it's really great. Agree, disagree. Memes can be an effective part of a content strategy.
No, disagree.
Ooh, tell me why.
And I am the biggest proponent for memes. I had a whole page that I just dedicated to memes. You know what? The main reason I say that is because people don't use them effectively. And they don't use them in a way that is organic. They try to stuff something into a mold, and they're like, everybody's doing this, we need to do this now. And it 9 times out of 10, it comes out really meh. And I don't like to see it. I prefer people to do their own thing, make their own fun, but I disagree in terms of that. Just because what happens is you do the meme, you send it up to the corporate has to approve it, and somebody has comment, and by the time it comes back out, it's 2 weeks too late. It's branded to hell, and it's just like, this has lost the entire essence of what a meme is and the freedom to create and extrapolate on it. So no, I don't think it's an effective part of content strategy.
I think you brought a very interesting point up right there, and let me ask a question based on it. Do you feel like giving people who manage your social media platforms the freedom to do those things on the fly it's a beneficial thing, or is a damaging thing?
Absolutely. Reactive content strategy is great, but it needs to be fast. And if you can't trust your agency to produce your content, and you can't trust that they know your brand voice and that they won't take your brand into waters where you don't want to go, then you've hired a company to create content for you and not an agency. You may as well then just hire in-house artists to create these posts for us, because if you've brought them on and you believe in their vision for your brand and the way to communicate, then yes, you should. I mean, reactive content. Duolingo, actually, I saw this on Twitter. Duolingo had a really good piece of reactive tweet that said, does Elon now have a thing for birds? Should I be worried? Right? And that's a tweet. That's a tweet that needed to come out on the day. It couldn't go to corporate, to somebody, and get approval, come back down. No, that needs to be like, boom. I think Oreo did one. I don't know if you remember the Great Blackout of New York City, where a few years ago, Oreo did one where they.
Were you there? Were you actually there when it happened?
I was not. Okay. Luckily, because I feel like New Yorkers have no idea what a blackout is. Like, the lights would have gone on and be like, all right, a regular Thursday in Trinidad, cool, but people in the US lost their minds. But yeah, Oreo did a really funny reactive content, and reactive content requires trust, and not a lot of clients trust their agencies to do that and do it well.
Right. I like that. And it's something else I wanted to ask, but I kind of flew out my mind, but that's fine. Just a couple more. Agree, disagree. Waluigi is more relatable than Mario. Supposed to be than Mario. Let me just hide that and fix that.
No problem. I will tell you that I do not know Waluigi's story enough to be able to really give an answer to that. So can I abstain? I don't know.
You can abstain. I mean,
I don't know enough to tell you about that, man. Sorry.
So some of these questions are not meant to be answered. But at least this one isn't. Most of the others are. And lastly, this is the one that I ask everyone who comes on the show. Agree, disagree. On social media, you grow more from doing rather than consuming.
As a brand, for sure. I think we spoke about, there's so much content being created. This fire hose of content that is being created every single day. And let's be honest, 99.99% of it is garbage. It's not great. It's not relevant. It's not going to change the world. And consuming that 1% of content that is revolutionary or goes viral, it's fun. Most of it is not as valuable. But doing stuff online helps you grow much faster than consuming. Yes, being active and engaging is important as well, but yeah, doing for sure. Agree.
All right, excellent. That was agree, disagree with Robert DeGans. Thank you so much for answering the questions, Robert. And now we have a special segment where we answer a couple questions from our Facebook group, the Useful Content Community Group.
Woo-hoo.
And so we have Cindy that asked the question in the group. Her question was, what strategies work best for a specific platform and why, with an example of a mark? Well, this is a big question, so we're going to try and cut it down as much as possible because of lack of time. But go ahead, take a crack at that one, Robert.
Sure. Cindy, I feel like Cindy working for CXC. This is like an essay question. And I hate to say this because it's such a, it feels like such a cop-out, but it really depends. So let's talk about, I'll talk very quickly. In terms of social media, your content wants to be visual, it wants to be trending. And, you know, I look at, okay, if you have a niche, if you have a product where it's visual, so food, clothing, jewelry, consumer goods, social media is a no-brainer. If you have a product that is more service and solution oriented in terms of like people have this problem and they want this solution, social media is not as powerful, but still valuable. You would go towards something like Google. If you're looking for professional services, obviously LinkedIn is there, and LinkedIn's value gives you the opportunity to target people by role and seniority. So if this is something that it's only the CEO and high-level managers can make a decision on, LinkedIn would be a great strategy there. Now, in terms of marketing strategy, I would say that your best bet is to, you know, I would create the content that you're going to create. Remember what I said. Solve X using Y, or get X for Y. You know, very straightforward messaging. People respond to that the best. You know, very rarely will you create a piece of content that is lightning in a bottle where you're like, oh my God, it's so viral. It's exactly what we wanted. Most of the content that does well is we solve this problem, click here. So in terms of strategies, I would say be direct in all of your messaging, and thinking about your category and your niche and your competitors. You can very clearly choose which platforms to go on. And as Steve Jobs says, good artists copy, great artists steal. Look at the brands that are doing the awesome stuff that you look at, and even if they're not in your niche, you can look at Lego advertising and think, I love that. I love how Legos use this and things like that. You can look at that for your types of strategy and look at what platforms they're using it on. I'm sorry, I know that was a broad question, but as quick as I can, I'd answer that. Yeah,
that's a big question. So, Cindy, I hope we're going to try to be. Don't ask whatever you want, but we may not be able to answer all of it. It's a big question. Let me just read it again for to make sure that is on the record. What strategies work best for a specific platform and why, with an example of a marketing strategy for that niche. Mm-hmm. Right, I just want to read it again, but you were going to say something.
No, I mean, so Cindy, I think, you know, I'm able to absolutely get deeper into specific niches and specific company platforms. If you want to reach out to me, feel free. I'm sure Juma is going to share my information afterwards. But yes, that's such a broad question. It'll be like, what boat would you buy? And I'd be like, well, for what purpose? What do I need to do with it? You know, where does it need to go? I wouldn't buy a dinghy to try and do commercial fishing. So that's a hard question to answer in a few minutes. Sorry, Cindy.
All right. That's the best as we could do. Zion Lion now. Zion Lion, probably not his real name, but Zion, how he appears on Facebook. Zion Lion, rebranding. Do I do a launch, a new account? How should one go about it?
Absolutely. So if you're rebranding, absolutely do a launch. You need to let people know Zion Lion is now this. And that's really important. Take, for example, I think B-Mobile, TSC to B-Mobile, they did a really good job of that. From one day to the next, the stores went from purple and blue to bright green. That's, you know, you have to do it immediately. I wouldn't suggest doing a new account because you will lose all of the audience that you have built with your previous brand. And being able to communicate to your current customers to say, hey, same service, same great service, different name, is important. So I wouldn't create a new account, absolutely do a launch. And when you're launching, switch everything over so that people aren't getting confused. Like your website is still the old URL and this, that, and the other. Change everything same day, run very aggressive ads, at least a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on your thing, but it needs to be known, very quickly.
Okay, great. So that is questions from the Useful Content Community group. If you want to be a part of the group, you're a business owner and you want to learn more about how to create marketing content that is useful, go to Useful Content Community on Facebook. This is the URL here if you want to jump into there. Thank you so much, Robert. Where can people find you?
Sure. So if you want to check out my YouTube page, you can. It's just Digital for Everyone on YouTube. Feel free to check out some of the content there. If you want to see more content from me, I know I haven't put out content in a while. Absolutely let me know. Check me out on LinkedIn. That's linkedin.com/in/Robert-Degans-Trinidad. And if you want to get in touch with me directly, you can hit my email up at robert@dfe.consulting. A lot of people mistake it and put .consulting.com, but I was fancy and I got a .consulting domain name. So hit me up at robert@dfe.consulting. Happy to answer any questions and get into, deeper questions that like what Cindy had, or if Zion, if you want to do the rebranding. Yeah.
Okay, great. Wonderful. And let me just recognize Robert saying he loves Expanse. And Keneal from Jamaica is saying hello. Keneal, kind of late though, but thank you for the hello nonetheless. Thanks so much, Robert, for such great insights into how to just maximize your ads on those platforms that we all love to hate, Google and Facebook.
Oh yeah.
And it's been really great speaking with you. Thank you, Useful Content Community, for being here. And we'll see you all again very, very, very soon. Awesome. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much, Juma. Have a good one.